A very good evening and thanks for clicking on to the second video of today. It is Saturday the 19th of October and I hope everybody is safe and well wherever you are. The sun is setting and it is setting on a rather impressive area of low pressure that is rapidly deepening to the west-southwest of the UK, and it is expected to make significant impacts, especially in western areas as well as northern areas of the UK over the next 24 hours or so. But before we continue with the video, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. I did do a tropical outlook back an hour or so ago as well, so a 15-minute look at the two tropical systems that have newly formed in the Atlantic and the impacts they may have. It looks as if it's going to be more of a rainmaker as opposed to a windmaker. That's good news for Central America and parts of the Northern Caribbean also. Live stream 4 p.m. tomorrow. I hope you can join me for that. We're going to be looking at all things global. We are going to look specifically at the major flooding that has now taken place yet again in parts of Europe, France, northern Spain, Italy, among the hardest hit areas. Upwards of 800 millimeters of rainfall within a 48-hour period. Some astonishing amounts of rainfall. But today we specifically look at Ashley, a little bit of long range at the end as well, thrown in for good measure. So a lot of reasons to stick around here on the channel. I will leave a link in the description below for both the tropical video that was released earlier and the live stream that will be obviously up at 4 p.m. tomorrow. So I hope you can join me for that. So we've got a very dynamic weather situation starting to unfold over and to particularly the western side of the UK at the moment here. This is a loop of the last 90 or so minutes of Storm Ashley gathering strength. It was a rather innocuous area of low pressure in the central Atlantic basin. It is riding a strengthening jet stream. It is now moving across into the cold side of the jet. We've got this baroclinic leaf structure, a very impressive system that this is a look of a rapid deepener. We are likely to see we are currently seeing explosive cyclogenesis, the pressure dropping very quickly by the hour, and therefore the system is going to quickly tighten up and produce some very, very powerful winds. Offshore, we are likely to see winds in excess of 100 miles per hour, but onshore, in the very exposed areas, we could see in excess of 80 to 90 miles per hour. That western side of Ireland, around the Donegal area, up towards the Antrim coast of Northern Ireland, and then up the western side of Scotland. These are the areas that are susceptible to some of the highest gusts. So like I said, this system developed, didn't look like much on the pressure chart and even satellite imagery, but what is happening is it's entered the right entrance region of the jet stream in excess of 100 to 150, even 200 miles per hour, roaring across the Atlantic. As it moves into that entrance region, then crosses in and then moves into and exits the left exit region. That area of left exit is an area of decelerating winds that then force increased upward motion and divergence in the upper levels of the atmosphere, creates the perfect meteorological environment for rapid cyclogenesis, and you have got all the hallmarks of a really powerful system that is likely to drop into the 940s and millibars sometime late tonight into the early hours of tomorrow morning. The one good news is, however, that the pressure is going to gradually come up as it makes a kind of essential UK landfall, whether it be northwestern Ireland or the northwest of the UK mainland here. Essentially, the centre will eventually likely move across the northern UK. The pressure is likely to be up by a good 10-15 millibars between its peak intensity versus the time it's crossing the northern UK. But we are still going to have a lot of energy, embedded within the system. It's still going to pack a punch. We're going to see widespread 50-60 mile per hour winds across a large swathe of Ireland and the northern UK as a whole. But it's these areas in the north that is most of concern. And the reasons why is we've got the strongest winds in this area. We're going to see the strongest winds up the western side of Scotland, anywhere from Argyll all the way up to the Sutherland area of northwestern Britain. We've also got the entire Outer Hebrides within that amber warning sky, Lochaber, Argyll. These are the areas that are going to be susceptible to damaging wind gusts, but we even could see some damaging wind gusts further east in the overall larger yellow warning area that encompasses the majority of northern Britain, as well as Northern Ireland. I'm slightly surprised that Northern Ireland on that north coast isn't in the amber warning, actually, I must admit. But we are going to see conditions going downhill during the overnight period tonight. So this is a look at the pressure chart here. I want to go back to the current situation here, because what we are going to find is this feature. Look at this here. This is all the way back, to what, midnight starting, last night into this morning. There's the system right there. It's 1,000 millibars on that warm side of the jet, so it's embedded within a warm and humid environment. That's another source of deepening as well, because it's containing a lot more energy and moisture having formed on the subtropical side of the jet stream. And you've also got some cold air getting driven south here. So these frontal systems are actually dragging in pulses of fairly cold polar air. And this is all the ingredients coming together. So you've got, warm, juicy, humid air within the central subtropical Atlantic. We've got polar air coming down through the Davis Straits. And then that is the jet stream right in between that. And when you've got this little energy developing, this little kink in the jet, what happens is these two air masses are colliding, polar versus tropical, tightens the strength of the jet stream. Then that feature develops, like I said, crosses from the warm to the cold side of the jet. And then it's really as it crosses into that incubation region, that zone, then we've got the system just develops very, very rapidly here. Is expected to see a pressure fall. See, between midnight and 12 UTC today, we'll go from 1,000 millibars to 975. Let's skip on to midnight tonight. So this is down to 953 millibars. So it goes from 1,000 to 953 millibars within a 24-hour period. So that in itself is rapid cyclogenesis. But look at how tightly wound this system is. It's quite a small area, but a very potent area of a high level of energy. So the cold air is getting drafted south, and we've got the warm tongue coming in from the southwest. We've got this rapid deepening taking place. All the while, very little to speak about over the UK and Ireland here. Even by midnight, isobars are fairly spread out. We've not got a lot to speak about. And then it's really, as we move in through the course of tomorrow, we'll have had the frontal system associated with this low moving through. So during the period between midnight and midday tomorrow, we're going to have the passage of the frontal system. Heavy rain, gusty winds. That's going to be the first spell of intense wind, damaging wind gusts possible even with the passage of the frontal system. And it's as we move into the second half of tomorrow, so beyond midday, we are likely to then see the core of the system itself, pressure likely now going from the upper 940s millibars, perhaps into the low 950s. All the while, we've got a tremendous amount of tightly wound air that is going to be releasing its energy in the form of severe gale force winds. And it's going to be Donegal, the northern, all the way up and down that west side of Ireland here. We're going to see gale force gusts, severe gale force gusts at that. But Donegal is going to be in the core of that south and southeastern flank. It's on the south side that the winds are going to be the strongest. It's going to move across the northern side of the island of Ireland, and then the core is going to come ashore across it may actually, the centre, it looks as if it may stay to the north of the mainland, but the core of strongest winds is going to be generally from that kind of midway up the west coast of Scotland to the north coast. The Orkney and Shetland are going to be under the gun as well. The good news is that the pressure is going to be slowly rising as this core of strongest winds crosses the northern UK during the course of anywhere between midday tomorrow and midnight Sunday into Monday. So this is the general idea anyway with regards to the pressure chart. I quite like showing you this to show you the cold front, the warm front, the occluded front. etc., etc. This is off the GFS here, and we'll look at this model first and foremost. So the system is already crossing over into the cold side of the jet. We're seeing the rapid deepening. Pressure is down to 947 millibars, but you notice something. By 3 o'clock tomorrow morning, the centre is well out, a few hundred miles to the west of the UK and Ireland here, but it's winding up. We're going to see some very powerful winds associated with this. Let's have a look at the wind speeds. So you can see the wind gust potential. If I can find it, it helps. 146 kilometers per hour. You notice here it's on the south side of the the grey colours here represent the core of strongest winds. Again, we've got strong winds moving through Ireland and Northern Ireland here and up through the Irish Sea. So we're going to see wave heights building, affecting shipping, and we're also going to start to see winds picking up in the west coast of mainland UK. But the majority of mainland UK is going to actually be quiet. By the time we reach 6 o'clock UTC Sunday, we've got that strong core now starting to make an approach at the UK here. The frontal system well out into the North Sea by this stage. And then it's as we move through the second half of tomorrow, strongest winds initially over the west coast of Ireland. Then they kind of progress eastwards. And then we're going to see the core of strongest winds anywhere from southern and central Scotland up through Scotland itself during the evening tomorrow. It looks as if really once we hit kind of dark to about midnight tomorrow, this is when the core of the strongest winds are going to be. But that frontal system, passage of the front during the morning towards the midday period, that is going to bring heavy rain and gale force winds. We may see conditions calm for a period of time. Sun may come out, drying out. Not a bad particular day. Then it's as the core of the system itself starts to rotate through, that is when we're going to see the winds jack back up again. Westerly winds is going to affect bridges, for example, shipping, and even rail travel. Road travel is going to be affected by this as well. So that is the general emphasis of the GFS model here. Let's have a look at other models and look at the up close. So let's look at the Icon model here, and let's go to the UK view. I want to specifically look at the UK and Ireland here. So in terms of overview chart, let's play it through the loop. Already peaking in intensity. You notice here that the pressure drops to 947 millibars, so pretty much the same as the GFS. The Icon model is showing a pressure as down to 947 millibars, but it starts to quickly rise once again, well out still to the west of the UK and Ireland. Again, look at the mess. Wind, rain, having already crossed well, a good couple of hours ago across Ireland and the UK here. This is at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning here, so a very messy Sunday morning. That feature then moves through the cold front, sweeps out into the North Sea, and then the core of the system, the core of strongest winds now starts to cross Ireland and then affecting the west coast of mainland UK. Look at this here, 15 UTC. So the period between the frontal system and the core of strongest winds, there's going to be a gap of a good 2 or 3 hours between one another, and then the system eventually moves in. Still 957 millibars over, it looks as if northern Lewis, the northern portion of the Outer Hebrides, centred right over this region, and then we've got some very powerful winds here blowing in from a west to southwesterly direction. So let's look at the wind gusts at the very same time, and 137 kilometers per hour already transferred across Ireland. Through the Irish Sea, we're going to see some very powerful gusts, 70, 80 mile per hour up and down the Irish Sea, and then it's battering, Skye down towards the Fort William area and that west coast exposure. Over the mountains, we're going to see over 100 miles an hour easily across the West Highlands, the Cairngorms, the Grampians. Wouldn't be surprised if we see 120, 140 mile per hour winds out of this with elevation. You're talking 3,500 to 4,000 feet above sea level. But the very, very powerful winds then transfer eastwards through the course of the afternoon. Look at this here, 141 kilometers per hour. What is that in terms of, I probably should know, but I want to see how strong those winds are in miles per hour. So let's look at mile per hour. So you're talking 87 miles per hour according to this model. So yeah, wind, rain, going to be a big issue through the course of tomorrow, hence why we've got an amber warning out for the west coast of Scotland. Let's look at another model. So the pressure here by this stage is 962 millibars, so it's slowly trundling across just to the north of the UK mainland, as you can see here, during the later portions of Sunday into the early hours of Monday. Then we've got a rash of showers blowing in on a stiff westerly airstream. Looking at the other models here real quick, let's have a look at the Arpege model. Is it going to show it? Yep, it is. Let's go back to the overview chart here and now. Let's see how much the system deepens. It drops to 946 according to this model, 945. Again, it does this little kind of loop-de-loop well out to the west of the UK and Ireland here. It's feeling the resistance to that high over Europe, by the way. Frontal system moves through. We know the script, wind, rain, and then the core of the system. Then slowly pressure is rising, but we're still down to 959, 960 millibars. Again, very similar track, clipping the far north of Lewis. Core of strongest winds in the southern flank here. So it's going to be battering the north side of Ireland and up and down the west coast of Scotland. But those strong winds are going to transfer all the way across the country. 50, 60 mile per hour winds, quite likely. And then the system again moves into the upper portions of Shetland here. Very strong winds through the second half of tomorrow into the early hours of Monday morning. Let's have a look at the wind gust chart of the same model here. See what it's showing. So we've got 170, 181, 185 kilometers per hour. So we've got a core here. Look at how tightly wound this system is. So on that southeastern core, we are talking about the winds in excess of 114 miles per hour, according to the translation. So yeah, very, very strong, dangerous winds, especially offshore. Then we do this loop-de-loop. You see the core of strongest winds then transferring west side of Ireland, across Northern Ireland, and then into the west coast of Scotland here. But still very powerful winds here blowing through the Irish Sea across Ireland. And northern England, we could see 70, 80 mile per hour winds, even over the Pennines, Cumbrian Fells, for example, as well. So this is going to definitely be a troublemaker, a travel disruptor, both in terms of on land as well as the sea. Even the airports are likely to be affected by this as well as it moves through. So Storm Ashley is definitely going to be a reminder that we're well into autumn now. We're into October. Nothing majorly unusual, let's be honest with you. 940, 945, 950 millibar areas of low pressure do happen. We only have to remember back to 37 years ago, a couple of days ago with the Great Storm of 87. Obviously a unique storm, but nonetheless, October, November, December, we're getting into the storm season, and this is a simple reminder that we're getting pretty close to it. Now, finally, I want to end with this video today by looking at the MJO. Look at this here off the GFS ensemble, by the way. Now starting to firmly show that rotation now into phases 5 through phases 6. That represents blockier pattern over the UK, over Ireland, over western areas of Europe. Northern Europe, perhaps we might start to see lower pressure across Mediterranean examples. We could see more flooding events, unfortunately, across parts of southern Europe. But then the MJO is expected in the most amplified state, by the way. We've seen the rotation through. Look at this here. These lines, this line here with the dates represent the last rotation. And notice how it was very close to the null phase, the more inactive phase, the less influential. But this next rotation through and into phases 7, 8, and 1 is much more amplified, so therefore a greater influence on the mid to high latitude pattern. What is going to be interesting is what influence does this have on our weather pattern here in the UK. So at the moment we've got a textbook positive NAO AO signal here, deep low to the northwest of the UK, especially up towards Iceland, Greenland. We only had a 948 millibar low last night, by the way. Temperatures with the frontal system, we had southwesterly winds, 50, 60 mile per hour winds on the coast. But that southerly flow last night jacked the temperatures up to 18 Celsius in parts of northern Scotland. Last night, 7 p.m, and it was due to that southerly flow associated with that 948 millibar low that then moved into the south coast of Iceland here. So we're very cyclonic. This is a textbook 4 and 5 MJO at the moment. Deep low extending up over Greenland, extending into the Arctic. We've got deep, broad ridges, not deep, but we've got broad ridges of high pressure over North America, over southern Europe here at the moment. So this is a textbook mild pattern. But watch what happens as we progress through the next few weeks in association with that eastward progress of the MJO. So that's that pulse of thunderstorm activity, that enhanced rain and thunderstorm activity that moves out of the Indian Ocean through the maritime continent. So that's between Australia and Southeast Asia, then into the central portion of the Pacific. That phase 4 and 5. Be sure to check out the winter ideas, by the way. I released the October update a couple of days ago. There's a 30-minute video that discusses the MJO and other aspects going forward, building blocks of this upcoming winter season. So please check that out. There is a lot of work being put into that. Do check out the article. It's on markvoganweather.com, so you can check that out and read it at your leisure. But I talk about this evolution, this eastward progress of that enhanced convection over the tropics. The influence of that is incredible, and we're seeing this more amplified phase 6, 7, 8 into 1 of the MJO. And what does that translate? It translates to the return of a negative Arctic oscillation, North Atlantic oscillation. We're going to go back to where we were before. So watch this here. This has appeared now between the 26th of October, 2nd of November. Notice here that we're starting to see higher pressure now establish UK, but just to the west of the UK and Ireland. So that's your phase 6 response. But remember, there's a lag. We're heading into phase 6 this week, but the lag is 10 to 14 days after it moves through that particular phase. And then the models are already showing that phase 6 response with the high. But notice its position to the west of the British Isles and Ireland. So that would suggest more northwesterly flow. Then as we move from week 2 into week 3, this is when things are starting to get interesting. You can see here pressure still over the UK and Ireland, but it's starting to go westwards and up towards the Greenland area. And then by the time we reach the 9th through the 16th, there's this lag. So we have to appreciate the fact that it doesn't just flick, doesn't just change right away. Remember that the energy is getting released from, half a world away. We're talking about the Indian Ocean. We're talking about the western equatorial Pacific. It takes time for the energy to then get released northwards. Then that affects the pattern over the North Pacific. That has a ripple effect across the Americas and over the Atlantic basin itself, up into the Arctic region. All this takes time, but it looks as if the modelling is going right to that phase 7, 8, and 1 of the MJO. So it looks as if we're starting to get more and more confidence that we're going to see a negative Arctic oscillation, North Atlantic oscillation in the month of November. And I'm starting to believe that we have cold potential increasing for the month of November. Look at this here by the time we reach the period between the 23rd and the 30th of November. We've got this blockiness going back up over the pole. Still the CFSV2 lingers with that block, that high pressure closer to the UK and Ireland here. But there is growing confidence that this pattern is going to change big time, and we have the increasing chance of seeing some significant cold during particularly the mid to second half of November, I think. So it's going to get really interesting if you're a lover of winter like I am. Looking at the GFS ensemble here. In fact, sorry, I meant to show you this. This is the CFSV2 for the month of November. So you can see here the block to the west up into Greenland here. It still shows positive heights over the UK and Ireland here, but nonetheless, it's showing a pattern that you would expect to see with this MJO rotating into the colder phases here. Looking at the CAN-SIPS model for the month of November, strong block over the central North Atlantic, extending up into Greenland, up into the Arctic region, and even the NMME model here, it's indicating a similar look. It only shows temperatures anomalies, but you can see here warmer than average across the North Atlantic, extending particularly up into Greenland and the Arctic region. So again, all these models are seeing that MJO response as it moves eastward here. I think I've spoken long enough. I did a 15-minute video there not that long ago. I think this must be close to half an hour. So I hope you've enjoyed the video. I hope it's been of use to you. It's been helpful. And I hope you can join me for the live stream at 4 p.m. tomorrow. There will be a link in the description below today's video. So it's been another busy Saturday here on Mark Vogan Weather on YouTube here. So I hope you can appreciate the hard work that's been put in. And 7 days a week content. You don't get that on every channel, that's for sure. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday evening, and I'll see you at 4 p.m. hopefully tomorrow afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.